Hello, and welcome to Point of View, where we give students a place to listen, learn, and lean in. I'm your host, Caleb Smith, and today we are with our principal, Mr. Downey, as we wrap up the year.
Hey, Caleb. Happy to be back with you guys.
We're so lucky to have you. We just got a couple questions for you. We can start off here. How has your year been since last year, and how do you feel about these differences that we've had?
Wow, this certainly has been a unique year for all the obvious reasons. You know, the first semester, I will say, was probably one of the most difficult semesters that I've had as a principal. This is my 8th year in this role. Coming into this year, I think we all had some expectations about what the year was going to be like, and it was a lot harder than I think we all thought it was going to be. I think the students, the staff, the parents, certainly myself, we were all fired up to kind of quote-unquote get back to normal, but I think we all forgot how hard the normal can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there were some situations in the fall semester that, as a principal, I pride myself on problem solving and making things better for the kids in our community. And there were just a couple situations that I wasn't able to resolve and make the situation better. So that was hard and frustrating. But on a positive sense, as difficult as the fall semester was, I think the spring semester has been so much better.
Yeah.
I think we're all kind of got back into the routine of doing school again. Mm-hmm. And in the spring, that's kind of when we start celebrating our seniors and start doing a lot more quote-unquote fun things. So it was great to have those things back on the calendar and great to see our kids enjoying school again.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with that. It feels good to be back after 2020 and then a little bit into 2021. I was kind of scared that we weren't going to come back, but I'm glad we got to go this full year.
Absolutely.
Got to live out our senior year.
Seniors.
Absolutely. I know. Yeah. I feel so bad for the past couple of seniors that didn't get to experience, the graduation and the prom and that sort of thing. But I'm very grateful that we've gotten this far. So that's just where I'm at right now. But for our next question, what are some accomplishments from this year that you're proud of?
It's almost too early to reflect back on that because we're several weeks away of kind of getting to that milestone of graduation. But I'm going to predict that looking back on this year, that especially in the second semester, that we were able to provide some experiences to our kids outside the classroom, as well as inside the classroom. And that's what was missing over the last two plus years for all of our students. High school is not just the academic experience. It's not just what happens in between the bells. Mm-hmm. That's certainly a big part of it, but really it's the whole experience that our kids have been missing out on. That this spring semester we were able to bring back. Mm-hmm. Our seniors got to do some fun experiences and get out of the building. I'm fired up for prom at Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah.
That should be a great night. Yeah. We were able to do Titan Fest again right before spring break, just to kind of get our kids to not just experience the stressors of school, but to experience the fun parts. So that's probably what I'll look back on and feel the best about, is that we were able to bring some joy back into the building.
Yeah, it feels good to have all these events back. It's been a minute. Us seniors, we only got to experience Titan Fest one time.
That's
right. It's good to have it back. It was awesome. What was your favorite event of this year?
That's a great question. The favorite event, it's International Night every year is always going to be a highlight. Mm-hmm. So that was a fun night, getting to see the kids showcase their talents on the stage.
Were you at A show or B show?
You always go to the B show.
Gotcha.
No doubt.
Good.
That's a no-brainer. The joy for me is that as principal, I don't need a ticket, so I can just kind of sneak in and walk right in. But I always try to make the B show because that's the one that has the high energy.
Definitely.
And the crowds into it. So that's always a highlight because, again, that kind of what I said to earlier, there's so much more about the high school experience than just the classroom stuff. So getting to showcase our kids and celebrating our kids, that's always a highlight. And we haven't hit prom yet, but I suspect prom's going to be another highlight. We really haven't had a full prom experience in several years. As you spoke to earlier, especially our senior class. The junior class, they always have next year.
Mm-hmm.
Senior class, this is it, and they haven't had one. And we're having it at Mercedes-Benz, so I think that's just going to be a neat and different experience. So I think that's going to be a highlight. And then, of course, every year a highlight is the graduation ceremony, because that's just the culmination of 12 years of education of our kids, and certainly our 4 years together. That's always a cool event.
Absolutely. Well, we were talking about Titan Fest. What was Titan Fest for you this year? What was it like for you?
It was, what I did a lot of is just sitting back and watching kids.
Yeah.
I mean, really, because
yeah.
that to me was kind of that earmarked moment of just fun, right? Yeah. School is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Most of our kids take a challenging course load, so it's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard being a student. For our seniors, getting at that time of year, spring break, kind of the college application process is pretty much done, and most of the kids have a good idea of what they're doing next year. Our underclassmen haven't experienced much of anything. You said the senior class was the only class that ever had a Titan Fest, so the 9th, 10th, and 11th graders never even knew what it was.
Yeah.
So just seeing the kids play and having fun, goofing off, being silly, just like it. So I just sat back and kind of watched it. So that was reward in and of itself. Just seeing the kids have fun.
That's awesome. Did you end up watching Carrie this year, if so,
I did.
What was your favorite part?
So so I went to the Sunday matinee show.
Gotcha.
So a couple of things that struck me. First of all, the talent level of our kids performing was really just. I shouldn't be surprised, but I'm always surprised about how talented our kids are. So that was great to see. I was not fully prepared for the script, so kind of some of the language was like, oh, wow. But it was, you're applauding it and you're cheering it in the sense that the kids are doing such a great job. But, the most surprising thing to me was that I got so caught up in the story that seeing the character of Carrie go through what she went through in terms of the harassment, bullying, kind of picking on her, like my heart was in the character.
Yeah.
So in that climactic prom scene where like all hell breaks loose, and then at the very end when her mom ends up stabbing her, like I was teared up.
Wow.
Like I was emotionally invested in character. Like I knew the story, I knew how it was going to go, but the kids did such a great job in the performance that I got emotionally invested in her. Yeah. So it was a little gut-wrenching to go through that ending. So that's what caught me off guard. I didn't expect to have that emotional response, but that's the beauty of the arts.
Yeah.
Is that it brings out that emotion in you, and that's why we experience it.
Yeah, I didn't get the pleasure of getting to see Carrie, but I actually really regret it because by what you just said and what other people have said, it's been an amazing performance. So
it really was.
I wish I could have made it. For our next question, how was your time at International Night this year specifically? Back to when we were talking about our events.
Again, as I said with the Titan Fest, just seeing people smile. We, having lived through the last 2+ years now, whatever it's been, it has been hard on everybody. So there hasn't been a lot of joy.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, everyone has been wearing masks.
Yeah.
So you didn't realize going through it, but certainly I appreciate now just seeing people's facial expressions, and in this case of joy and fun and laughter. When the 2 years leading up to this have just been hard. So there hasn't been a lot of smiling. So International Night, again, just kind of like Titan Fest, it was a chance to see our kids, and in this case also our community, our parents, just being joyful.
Yeah.
And celebrating each other.
celebrating all the cultures and the diversity
yes,
we have.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And there's no doubt eating that food is a highlight.
Yeah.
That's a big treat. And then again, kind of like Carrie, seeing our kids perform on stage and showcasing their talents, you're always like, wow, I didn't know that kid could do that.
Exactly, yeah.
That's always
so many
neat
people
to
surprise
see.
me. But
Yeah.
It was a great event. What homecoming or prom theme would you like to see this year that we haven't done before?
A prom or homecoming theme?
Yeah.
Jeez. That's a tough question.
Yeah, because I know we've had like I think it was Marvel a couple of years ago, and then Star Wars for a prom. So that sort of thing, like any like special,
I don't think I have one because it's not about what I want at all, right? Part of my job is to try and provide experiences that the kids want.
Yeah.
So, that's my safe defer to that question is, because what's fun to me might not be fun to a teenager now.
I got you.
I graduated high school 30 some odd years ago. So it's I'm turning 50 this year, so I can't deny that.
Clap you for that
one. I don't know if applause is necessary for just getting old, but and I say that in a fun way, and that I'm starting to feel a little bit of that disconnect with what kids like today versus 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when I was a little more closer to it. So I'm going to run and celebrate whatever the kids want to do.
Absolutely. I love that response. Well, what kind of music have you been listening to, or any new artists have you been listening to?
I just had this conversation with my wife because I'm always a Dave Matthews fan. I always have been. But I've sort of rediscovered some other jam bands. And I have been hooked on OAR right now. And I'm going to be buying tickets to they have a show at the Roxy in July in downtown Atlanta that I'm going to go to. So it's, Fish, OAR, Dave Matthews. I've kind of just gotten back into these jam bands that I've rediscovered. I mean, it's not new music necessarily. But I've kind of fallen in love with it again.
So you used to listen to it in the past, and then now
you
came back to
exactly,
it. I got you.
Exactly.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. What is your favorite Taylor Swift song?
I guess the standard answer, can you go wrong for any of them?
No,
but then I'm supposed to be able to name some Taylor Swift songs, which I might get stuck with. My daughter's 12. She'll be able to rattle off the Taylor Swift songs much better than me.
Yeah.
As much as I joked about some of the bands I like to listen to, I have kids at home.
Yeah.
And they insist on Dad changing the music whenever I'm playing my songs, and it usually ends up with like Imagine Dragons or a Taylor Swift or something.
Because I remember in like our first interview, we were talking, I think, about music, and you said you were a Swiftie, and then that kind of threw everybody out. So we had to bring it back. So no favorites right now. No favorites right now with the songs.
Nope, I can't name any right now because I've been stuck on my jam band music.
I got you. No worries about that one. If you were a student at Northview, which classes would you wish to take?
Wow, that's another great question. Usually what I have found through my experience, it's less about the content and more about the person leading the class.
Yeah, I agree.
So there's, my background's in biology, so I'm sure that if I was a student at Northview, I'd probably gravitate to Mr. Morgan's health science classes.
Gotcha.
That pathway.
Yeah.
I'm also a huge soccer fan, so I would love to be a student in his class and talk soccer and talk.
You played when you were younger, right?
I did. Yep.
Yeah,
I grew up playing soccer,
and
then I coached a high school team for 16 years.
Wow, I did not know that.
I miss being involved with that, and I'm now coaching my son's U10 team.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's got me connected. But,
yeah.
So certainly Mr. Morgan's class would probably intrigue me. Mr. Rollins' 12th grade lit class, that's a hard class. But coming out of that class, the kids really grow. So that would probably, writing and communicating is always an essential skill to be successful no matter what you do. So that class would intrigue me. I'd probably suffer through that class like every other senior who takes that. I would probably not take Bombard's calculus class, and that's not a comment on Coach Bombard. That calculus, I struggled with calculus. I'd probably avoid that class. What else is out there?
God, let's think.
Rattle off some, and I'll tell you if I would have dove into them.
Like science-wise, let's or forensics, maybe biology. Well, you said biology, right?
Yeah, so I would definitely be taking those. I'd be intrigued by Mr. Kemp's physics class.
Yeah,
physics. I kind of struggled with physics a little bit in college, but I think he's just a great teacher. So I think his class I probably could have benefited from.
Yeah, definitely.
So certainly in the sciences, I'd probably eat up just about every science class we have out there.
I gotcha. I think we got a general sense of what kind of classes are a little bit hard and a little bit of easy in there. What aspect of Northview as a whole would you say is your favorite?
No doubt the kids. The working with kids is a joy. Working with adults is a little bit harder.
Yeah.
But our student body, I put our student body up against any other high school in the country.
Yeah.
We Northview gets some really high national accolades and state level accolades for our achievement. And it's certainly in no small part to our teaching staff, but really at the end of the day, it's our students that come into this building every day that embrace being students and everything that comes with it. The vast majority of our kids, they want to be successful. So they're here every day to be successful. And then they're here to be involved. The fact that you guys are even sitting here doing this podcast reflects our students in general.
Yeah.
Like they kind of take that extra step to do one more thing to make their own experience in school a good one. So when I get to share in that time and have moments like this where we can have a conversation and interact with our kids on any level, that just brings joy to my day. It's certainly my job. And I've said this 1,000 times. I got one of the best educational jobs in the country. I get paid to come to Northview every day and hang out with these kids every day.
Yeah,
it's a pretty good gig.
Well, we love you as our principal. Thank you. What are your hopes for next year? Or are there any changes in the upcoming year?
Next year, I'm certainly hoping that unlike this fall, when we had to make that transition back into school full time, that our kids already have this full year under the belt. That we're back into that routine with deadlines.
Yeah,
and that's been our struggle this year with our students. I think has been kind of that idea of staying on top of our deadline because through COVID, we've given everyone that grace, and we've not been tight on handing things in on time. So like right now, we sweat out the end of the year because some kids are on paper failing classes when really it's just because they have a 0 and they haven't turned something in that they just need to get done and turn in. So like we're anxious as administrators and we're chasing kids when really it's just if we had turned this in on time, we wouldn't be sweating this time of year. So I'm hoping that gets behind us. And then we have every year at this time we're hiring some new teachers. So we always want to make sure we get that right. And we're not going to be right 100% of the time, but we certainly want to be right as close to 100% of the time so that our kids have great teachers in front of them.
Yeah.
And then we plan next year to have all those great events for our kids to enjoy. What I didn't get to this year, which I want to get back to, is it's up on my whiteboard right now, even though you might not be able to read my shorthand. But I have SAC, which is a Student Advisory Council, to create a committee of kids that represent the school that we meet with on a regular basis. That kind of keep me in touch with what's working and what's not working.
Yeah.
I want our kids to have a voice in, if something's not going right, that they have an avenue and a voice to make things better.
Yeah, like kind of the connection between like how there's a gap between you and the students, that they kind of bridge the gap.
Yeah.
Like
so it's not, through the journalism class, I'm in that class a lot, and that's an opportunity to have a little bit of a dialogue. But I'm trying to find ways to have or processes to have more of those dialogues with kids.
Gotcha. For our final question, what are your plans for this summer?
Well, it's interesting. This summer, professionally, we're getting kicked out of our building here. We have all this construction going on, right? So one of the summer projects that's going to happen is that they are upgrading our fire safety system, which means that once they turn that off, we're not allowed to occupy the building. So professionally for the summer, I'm going to be hanging out at Chattahoochee High School.
Really?
Yep. I'm going to have to set up offices over there for the summer.
Oh, wow.
And really the summer is really about just planning for next year. So in the month of June, the administrative team will still be working full time. So it's all about planning for next year. And then July is the first 2 weeks of July are usually pretty quiet. And that's usually when I'll take a little vacation time.
Yeah.
And that July 4th week is a real quiet week because obviously everyone's on vacation. So usually I try to get away then as well. What's interesting this summer, on a personal note, is that both of my kids will be at overnight camp for 4 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So it'll be the first time that my wife and I will be kind of staring at each other. Like, all right, we don't have kids to chase around and shuffle around and drive around.
Yeah.
So we're going to plan some fun things for us.
That's awesome.
So really, it's just taking a couple weeks off to kind of recharge.
Yeah.
And get ready to tackle the new year.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited. I mean, we won't be here to kind of experience it, but
that's all right. You guys will be off to bigger and better things for all of our seniors. You guys were, your lives are just beginning at this point. You'll just be stepping out of that, literally and figuratively stepping out of the house.
Yeah.
Stepping out from mom and dad, and kind of on your own. And life is the fun parts of life are just starting for you guys.
Yeah, well, we're thankful for the the lessons that we've learned here. We'll take it with us into wherever we go after this. But that's all the time we have for today. We thank you so much for your time and support this year. This concludes our episode. Thank you so much for listening. For a transcript of this episode, head to the Point of View tab on our website, nhsmessenger.org, and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at NHS Point of View for more updates and new episodes. I'm your host, Caleb Smith, and this has been
Brian Downey, and it's a joy to join you guys.
And this has been Point of View.